I'm Maria Bell and I work at the LSE Library as the law librarian, and that means that I'm here to assist staff and students in navigating their way around the information and the materials that they'll need in their research and study. So today was just going to outline some of the key points when starting out with legal research. Books will be the best place to start with most material, with most of your studies, in terms of giving you an introduction to a topic that is new to you and giving you a good coverage of something. Quite often they will also reproduce the cases or the legislation that is needed to help explain the law to you, all in one place, all on one subject area. There could be many editions of a particular book, particular textbooks, so it's important to make sure you've got the current edition and so that you're reading up-to-date legal information. Obviously, for very recent developments, a book may not be the right thing to look at because it's a very long publication process, so there may not be a book on something that's only just occurred in the last year or so. And that's where it becomes more important then to also turn to academic journal articles. LSE reading lists will cover and include a lot of different academic journal articles. The reasons you might read these obviously is for that very recent current developments, but also they may be covering a very specific and detailed part of the law or a piece of legislation, and that discussion can take place in detail in a journal article, perhaps more than in a book that's trying to cover a much wider area. For each of the law courses that students are studying, there'll be certain key titles, key journal titles, academic journal titles that will be used a lot, and students will become familiar with them, as well as with the big broad titles such as Modern Law Review or Cambridge Law Journal. Law students will also be required and being asked to read from journals that are widely used in legal practice. And this is an important part of legal studies as it provides a viewpoint and a perspective from legal practice, from the legal practitioners. And this is an important part of understanding how the law is then carried out in practice. So to find the books and the journal articles that I've been talking about, the best place that we would recommend starting is library search. That's the name we give to the library search engine or the library catalogue. If you are looking for a specific item, then the author's last name or some keywords from the title of the book should be sufficient to find it and to bring the result to the top of the results pages. If you're starting instead from a subject point of view, then again, it's about selecting the keywords from that. In legal studies, the other key sources that are on reading lists will be cases and legislation. And it is essential and necessary for all law students to get to grips with what a case reference looks like, what a legislation reference looks like, and then how you might find that material. It's important to note that legislation and cases cannot be found sort of directly from library search, unlike the books and the journal articles that I mentioned earlier. So it is not possible to put in a case name in the library search and go straight, and it would take you straight to the link to the case itself or to the piece of legislation itself. It is quite likely that there'll be books about those. It may be that you'll find a book about the Environment Act or a book about a particular case, but you won't get to the source itself. Westlaw is one of the leading resources for legal research. It contains all the UK case law, and it will contain also all the current and in-force legislation for the UK. The added value of sources like Westlaw is that there is also an updating being done every day, and also annotating and adding sort of case summaries or legislation overviews, as well as adding notes when legislation is changing or has changed, or if a case decision has been overturned. These are all part of helping a legal practitioner quickly get to the information they need. In each section of Westlaw, whether it's cases, legislation or journals, there is a very simple search screen. You can start by the piece of legislation you need, whether it's Environment Act or Companies Act, so those titles can be input. If you add the year, that will make it much easier to find the one you need, especially if there's been more than one act of the same name over the several centuries that are contained within Westlaw. Similarly with the cases, it's important you can put in the case names. And again, the more you put in, the more exact the search can be. This has been just a short sort of summary of some of the key points that students need to be aware of when starting out with legal research in terms of the sources and the types of materials that they're going to need to use, identifying them and then finding them through the sources that are available, the resources that are available. There is more support available to students through LSE Life and the workshops that are being run all through this term and next term, and also through the direct support that students can get from the academic librarians, including myself, by making appointments to talk to us about their first essay or about how to carry out legal research for their projects that they need.